So today we're going to be powder coating this valve cover for the L18 in my Datsun 620. Now I want to show you something very important when it comes to powder coating valve covers. This also applies to oil pans and maybe a few other things. Everybody knows that in order to powder coat something, it needs to be bare, clean metal. Best way to do that is sandblasting. That also provides a good surface finish for the powder to stick to. However, valve covers and oil pans generally have some type of baffle underneath them for the breather system, and that baffle poses a huge problem. When you sandblast, it is almost impossible to not get that small grit and dust underneath the baffle. Now, on this Datsun, I'm super lucky because this one actually unscrews, so I can remove the baffle, and then I can just go ahead and sandblast this thing however I want. I can just go to town on it, and then I can rinse out the entire inside underneath the baffle, and then I can screw it back in at a later date. So not a big deal, it will be easy to clean. However, some valve covers, this one here for example, this is a 4G633 first or second gen Mitsubishi Eclipse, Eagle Talon, whatever. Now you notice the baffle on this thing, I mean there's so many places that dirt and dust can go in, and this thing is like riveted in. Sure, it could be removable. You could remove this. It would just be a serious pain in the butt. Unfortunately, that's a maybe. I don't know. If you want to end up with sand or glass beads or whatever grit and dust floating around your engine oil in your engine, that's something that you can deal with on your own. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea. So for this valve cover, what I would do is get it dipped or stripped, and then probably finish up with a lot of work by hand, either DA or sandpaper or whatever. Something that's not going to, well, something that will minimize getting any crap in the baffle. With my L18 here, my old Datsun, I'm real lucky. I was able to take it out, so let's throw it in the sandblaster and get it clean. So I use a type of glass. It's like crushed glass, not glass beads, but also not sand. Leaves a really good surface for aluminum, and it doesn't degrade it very much. Excellent for powder coating. So now I've got the valve cover. It's out of the sandblaster. Looks pretty good, pretty uniform, but since this contained oil, and I'm sure oil had been spilled on and around it, then what I'm going to do is put it in the oven and bake it for about 20 to 30 minutes so that it can off gas. Basically what that'll do is that'll just drive out any oil that's stuck anywhere in any of the pores in the aluminum. I generally don't do this with steel or with things that haven't had oil in them. The only reason for this is once I lay the powder on, if there's any oil in there, I don't want that powder coming out. Sorry, I don't want the oil coming out through the powder and ruining the finish. So take care of it now, and then we'll give it a good wipe down and put it in the booth, throw some powder on it, and get it going. Gonna hang this part in the oven for a little while. Not really any specific time, but give it a good long time to bake at 400 degrees just to make sure that it gets properly off-gassed. And then it's time to move on to my least favorite part of any powder coat job, and that's the very tedious process of masking everything that you don't want to get powder on. So for this, make sure you use high temp tape. I like to use aluminum foil to span large gaps so I don't just needlessly waste tape. I have a large assortment of silicone plugs to go inside of threaded holes. Now since masking this, just to make sure that we get all the oil from my hands off of it as well as any off-gassed oil, I'm using some acetone on a microfiber towel, being careful to really only grab it where it's masked. And then just to get any lint or dust off of it, a quick blow off with a propane torch, and it's ready for powder. So I'm laying down a base coat of a sparkly silver, and you'll see why a little bit later. Now I'll throw that in the oven and get a partial cure, which means just bring the part up to temperature and then pull it out. We're not going to go through the whole cure cycle because it will get fully cured later on. Now here's one of the greatest things about powder coating, and that is the ease of changing colors. Just some good dry air to blow everything off, and all of the powder comes off really easily. And just fill up the cup with another color, and you're ready to go again. Now I've allowed the part to get to a partial cure, so it's gotten up to the 400 degree cure temp, and then as soon as it reaches 400 I pull it out. Now I've waited for the part to cool down. It's not room temperature, but it certainly isn't hot enough for the powder to melt on contact. That's not something that you want to do. The powder may seem like it sticks better, but since it instantly melts, it doesn't let you gauge how thick it's on, which could lead to poor performance and an overall bad powder coat job. Use a bright LED light to inspect the part. You'll see any thin spots that may need more powder. And now right here, I'm just using my finger. There's many different ways that you can remove powder, but finger works really well, just to take the red off of the silver, so we'll have a nice two-tone at the end. Quick inspection, then back in the oven. And I've got documentation here. This is the stuff from Prismatic Powders. These are the application guides. And you look for the item number and you try to match up what you used. So I had a PWS, so I'm looking for which ones work with that. Searching, searching, searching. Here we go. So this is the application guide for the PWS powders. It tells me the cure and temp. As always, the cure time starts when the substrate reaches temperature. So once it hits 400 degrees, it will bake for 20 minutes. Powder coating stuff isn't just throw it in the oven for 30 minutes and pull it out and it's good to go. Depending on the size of the part, it could take a while to get the substrate to the temperature. Here's a look at it right now. As you can see, it's just a plain red. Wrinkle hasn't happened yet. We're only at 338 degrees. So we got to give it some more time. There we go, that wrinkle started to pop now. 396 degrees, 400. Time to start the timer. 20 minutes. So the valve cover is out of the oven. I went ahead and removed all of the masking, the tape, the plugs and everything. As we can see, the backside looks really nice. I got, a tiny bit of overspray on a few spots. That's just where the tape had started to peel up after the original bake with the silver. You will get that, but it's not on the inside surface, which is where the gasket and oil mating surface for a valve cover is. So that tiny bit of overspray right there is not going to degrade the function of this part at all. It looks amazing. You can see that nice wrinkled texture there. Pretty stellar. You can see the silver, the contrast of that there. Super easy to do. This is going to make a great impact on my Datsun. Link to a playlist for the Datsun up there if you're interested to see what this goes on. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to reinstall the little baffle cover that goes in here. I showed it to you earlier. It's just a small stamped steel piece with 6 tiny screws. Make sure to use Loctite on those screws. You do not want to have screws falling into your valve train. Very bad mojo on that one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for starting off my Powder 101 series. This was the very first video in that entire series. There will be more on particulars on how to powder coat other things like wheels, brake calipers, suspension parts, do's and don'ts, things to look out for, tips and tricks. So I hope you stay tuned for all of those. And that's it for today. Thanks for spending your time with me. Stay safe out there. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.